When a furious white man erupts over a parking spot, he sees an elderly black woman with a cane, fragile, alone, and easy to intimidate. He shoves her, certain she won't fight back. What he doesn't know is that she's a karate black belt, trained in discipline, power, and control. She warns him. He sneers. Seconds later, he's on the pavement, disarmed, stunned, and humiliated by a flawless takedown. The video goes viral, but the real fight is just beginning. Now the threats are coming, and this time, she's not backing down. She's fighting back. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The Georgia sun beat down mercilessly on the grocery store parking lot, turning car hoods into mirrors of blinding light. Inside their old Honda Civic, Marjorie Washington and her granddaughter Shayla were sharing a moment of pure joy, their laughter filling the car's interior. And then Marcus just slipped on the wet floor right in front of everyone. Shayla wiped tears from her eyes, her braids swaying as she shook with laughter. "I shouldn't laugh, but Granny, you should have seen his face." Marjorie's gentle chuckle joined her granddaughter's as she carefully maneuvered the car through the packed lot. "Lord have mercy, child. You shouldn't take pleasure in others' misfortunes." But her eyes twinkled with amusement behind her wire-rimmed glasses. "There's one." Shayla pointed to an empty spot near the store's entrance. "And it's in the shade, too." Marjorie nodded, flicking on her turn signal and slowly beginning to back into the space. Her movements were deliberate and precise, just like everything else she did. The wooden cane resting against her seat hadn't been needed for parking, at least. A sudden horn blast shattered their peaceful moment. A massive red pickup truck came barreling down the lane, engine roaring. The driver swerved sharply, trying to pull nose first into their spot. "Oh, no, he didn't!" Shayla's voice rose in indignation. "We had our signal on." Marjorie remained calm, continuing her careful parking maneuver. "It's all right, baby. Some folks just need to learn patience." The truck's horn blared again, longer this time. Through the rearview mirror, Marjorie could see the driver's face turning as red as his vehicle. He was a big man, probably in his 50s, with a scraggly beard and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. "Granny, maybe we should find another spot," Shayla said, her earlier laughter replaced by concern. "No, sugar." Marjorie's voice was firm but gentle. "We're not doing anything wrong." As she finished parking, the truck's door flew open with a metallic bang. The driver, Dale Kaplan, though they didn't know his name yet, stomped toward their car, his work boots heavy on the asphalt. "Hey!" he shouted, spittle flying from his mouth. "That was my spot, you stupid!" He cut himself off, eyes widening as Marjorie carefully opened her door and emerged, reaching for her cane. Shayla quickly got out too, moving to stand protectively near her grandmother. "Sir, we had our signal on." "We were clearly backing in." Dale's face twisted with rage as he looked between them. "Oh, so now you people think you can just take whatever you want?" His voice dripped with venom. "First it's parking spots. Then what?" Marjorie placed a gentle hand on Shayla's arm, sensing her granddaughter's growing anger. "Sir, there are plenty of other spaces available. There's no need for this confrontation." "Shut your mouth!" Dale stepped closer, looming over them. "I've had it with you people acting all entitled. This is my spot." His hands clenched into fists. Several shoppers had stopped to watch the scene unfold. A few had their phones out, recording. "Sir, please step back," Marjorie said quietly, her grip tightening on her cane. Instead, Dale reached out and grabbed Marjorie's shoulder roughly. "Make me, you old—" He spat out a racial slur that made Shayla gasp. In one fluid motion, Dale snatched Marjorie's cane and flung it across the parking lot. It clattered against the pavement as Shayla screamed, "Granny!" What happened next seemed impossible to those watching. As Dale moved to shove Marjorie, her peaceful demeanor vanished. Her body shifted with lightning speed, her legs sweeping out in a perfect arc that caught Dale behind his knees. As he began to fall, her hands moved with practiced precision, grabbing his wrist and twisting it at exactly the right angle. There was a pop as Dale's wrist dislocated. He hit the ground hard, face pressed against the hot asphalt, arm locked behind him at an awkward angle. Marjorie held him there with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this countless times before. "Jesus Christ!" someone in the growing crowd shouted. "Did you see that?" another voice called out. "She dropped him like a sack of potatoes." Dale struggled and cursed, but every movement only increased his pain. "Let me go, you crazy old witch." "I suggest you choose your next words very carefully," Marjorie said softly, maintaining the hold with minimal effort. Her face showed no anger, no excitement, only focused concentration. Shayla stood frozen, phone in hand, recording everything. "Granny?" Her voice wavered between awe and concern. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Someone had called the police. Marjorie held Dale firmly until she heard the cruisers pulling into the parking lot, then released him with the same fluid grace she'd shown in taking him down. Dale scrambled to his feet, clutching his injured wrist. "She attacked me," he screamed, as two officers approached. "Did you see what she did? She assaulted me. I want her arrested." One of the officers looked at the small crowd, noting all the phones pointed their way. "We'll need statements from everyone. Sir, let's start with you stepping over here." "I don't wish to press charges," Marjorie said calmly, as Shayla retrieved her cane. "I simply want to do my shopping." But it was too late for quiet resolution. The videos were already being uploaded, shared, spreading across social media like wildfire. The peaceful grandmother who had taken down an aggressive man twice her size was about to become viral famous, whether she wanted to or not. The evening air hung heavy and thick on Marjorie's front porch, barely stirred by the lazy spinning of the overhead fan. She sat in her favorite wooden rocker, a bag of frozen peas wrapped in a dish towel pressed against her right hand. The pain wasn't bad. She'd known far worse in her younger days, but old joints needed extra care now. Shayla paced back and forth across the worn boards, her footsteps creating a steady rhythm that matched her rising anger. Her phone was clutched tight in her hand, screen glowing in the growing darkness. "This is complete garbage," Shayla's voice cracked with frustration. "They just let him go. No charges. No nothing. After what he did to you." Marjorie watched her granddaughter with patient eyes. "Child, please sit down. You're wearing a path in my porch boards." "But Granny!" Shayla stopped pacing, but couldn't contain her energy, bouncing on her toes. "He assaulted you first. Everyone saw it. It's right here on video." She thrust her phone forward, showing the footage she'd taken earlier. "Look at how he grabbed you, how he threw your cane. And those horrible things he said." "I'm aware, sugar." Marjorie adjusted the bag of peas. "I was there." "Then why didn't you press charges? Why let him just walk away?" Shayla slumped into the chair beside her grandmother, deflating slightly. "It's not right." Marjorie was quiet for a moment, listening to the crickets starting their evening chorus. "Sometimes the right thing isn't the smart thing." "What's that supposed to mean?" Shayla's phone buzzed again, and she glanced at it. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, Granny! The video's gone viral! Look at these views!" Marjorie leaned over slightly, squinting at the small screen. The footage was everywhere now, shared thousands of times. Some of the comments made her stomach turn. "Karate Granny takes down racist." "Don't mess with black grandmas." "This old lady's got moves." "They're calling you a hero," Shayla said, scrolling through responses. "You're trending." "Nothing heroic about it." Marjorie muttered, shifting the frozen peas to a particularly sore spot. Just an ugly situation that got out of hand. Shayla's phone buzzed again, this time with a different kind of notification. Her face darkened as she read. "Oh no, 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 no. That jerk is on some podcast right now, telling lies." She turned up the volume, and Dale Kaplan's voice filled the porch, twisted with fake victimhood. "I was just trying to park my truck, minding my own business, when this angry woman started yelling at me. Next thing I know, she's attacking me. I mean, look at my wrist. It's sprained. I could have been killed." The podcast host's voice chimed in. "So, you're saying you were the victim here?" "Absolutely. These people, they're always looking for a fight, always playing the race card. I was defending myself. She's probably one of those BLM terrorists." Shayla shut it off, her hands shaking. "He's completely twisting everything around. How can he just lie like that?" "Because that's what men like him do, baby." Marjorie's voice was tired, heavy with the weight of experience. "They throw the first punch, then cry victim when you defend yourself." More notifications popped up on Shayla's phone. Her face grew increasingly worried as she read. "Granny, they're posting our address, our phone number, everything." Right on cue, Marjorie's landline started ringing inside the house. She made no move to answer it. "Look at these messages," Shayla whispered, holding up her phone. "They're threatening us, calling us terrible things." Her voice caught. "Maybe we should call the police?" Marjorie let out a short, bitter laugh. "And tell them what? That people are being mean on the internet? But these are real threats. They know where we live." Shayla stood up again, unable to keep still. "We have to do something." "We will, child. We will." Marjorie removed the bag of peas, flexing her fingers carefully. "But not tonight. Tonight, we just—" The sound of shattering glass cut through the night air like a gunshot. Both women jumped as a bottle exploded against the porch railing, sending fragments skittering across the boards. The sharp smell of gasoline filled the air. A truck engine roared in the darkness, tires squealing as it sped away. Laughter and shouts faded into the distance. Shayla ran to the railing, peering into the night. "Did you see who—" "Get inside." Marjorie's voice had changed, taken on an edge Shayla had never heard before. "Now." "But Granny—" "Inside." Shayla backed toward the door, startled by her grandmother's tone. But Marjorie didn't move. She stood perfectly still, staring at the broken glass glinting in the porch light. Her jaw was clenched tight, the muscles working beneath her skin. The gentle grandmother of moments ago had vanished, replaced by something harder, something forged in older fires. The phone kept ringing inside. Somewhere down the street, dogs were barking. The gasoline from the bottle was forming a dark stain on the wooden boards, spreading slowly in the humid night air. Marjorie's hands, so recently used in self-defense, curled into fists at her sides. Her silence now wasn't peaceful. It was a gathering storm. The next morning, while Marjorie was at church, Shayla climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. Dust motes danced in the thin streams of light filtering through the small window. The floorboards creaked under her feet as she moved between stacked boxes and old furniture draped in sheets. "There has to be something up here," she muttered, pulling out her phone for light. Granny didn't learn those moves from nowhere. In the furthest corner, partially hidden behind an old dress form, sat a large trunk. It was made of dark wood, bound with brass, with a heavy padlock securing the clasp. Shayla recognized it. She'd glimpsed it once when she was little, before Granny June had shooed her away. The lock was old and rusted. After a few careful twists, it broke apart in her hands. Shayla's heart pounded as she lifted the heavy lid. The first thing she found was a neatly folded red belt. The fabric faded, but still vibrant. Beneath it lay a stack of yellowed newspaper clippings. Shayla picked up the top one, dated 1968. Daughters of Fire, Black Women Fight Back. The black and white photo showed a group of women in karate uniforms standing proud and fierce. In the center, young and beautiful, stood her grandmother. "Oh my God," Shayla whispered, digging deeper. More articles emerged. Self-defense classes give hope to community. Local women stand against night riders. Martial arts group trains church ladies. At the bottom of the trunk, she found photographs. Young Marjorie demonstrating kicks and strikes. Groups of women practicing in church basements and community centers. Awards and certificates from tournaments. And then, Shayla's breath caught. A wedding photo. Her grandmother in white, beaming beside a handsome man in uniform. "What are you doing up here?" Shayla jumped, scattering photos across the floor. Marjorie stood in the attic doorway, still in her church clothes, her face unreadable. "Granny, I'm sorry, Shayla gestured helplessly at the open trunk. Who were the Daughters of Fire? Marjorie closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they seemed darker, heavier with memory. She walked over slowly and picked up the red belt. "We were just girls, really," she said softly, running the fabric through her fingers. Girls who were tired of being afraid. She lowered herself onto an old chair, her movements careful and measured. It started in '65, after Selma, after watching our men get beaten in the streets. We decided it was time for the women to learn to protect themselves. "You taught them?" Shayla asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "Master Chen taught me first. He had a little dojo downtown, the only one who'd take black students. I trained every day for 3 years, earned my black belt. Then I started teaching others." Marjorie picked up one of the scattered photos. "We'd meet in secret. Church basements, community centers, anywhere we could find space. Word spread. Soon we had chapters in 3 counties. But why didn't you ever tell me about this?" Shayla asked. "About who you were." "Because of what happened to your grandfather." Marjorie's voice grew tight. She touched the wedding photo gently. "James was so proud of what we were doing. He'd stand guard during our training sessions, make sure no one bothered us. But the clan, they didn't like the idea of black women learning to fight back." She fell silent, lost in memory. Shayla waited, hardly daring to breathe. One night, they followed him home from work. 3 men with pipes and chains. He fought back. James was a fighter like me, but... She closed her eyes. "They found him the next morning. I was 7 months pregnant with your mother." "Oh, Granny." Shayla reached for her grandmother's hand. "After that, I put it all away. The belt, the photos, everything. I promised myself, no more fighting, no more making targets of the people I love." She gestured at the trunk. "That life died with James." "But you didn't forget," Shayla said. "Yesterday, in the parking lot. Some things your body never forgets." Marjorie's smile was sad. "Even when your heart wants to. Teach me." The words burst from Shayla before she could stop them. "Please, Granny. The world isn't any safer now. Look what happened yesterday. We still need to know how to protect ourselves." "No," Marjorie's voice was firm. "That's not your path, child. I won't put that burden on you." "But..." I said no. She stood up, gathering the scattered photos. "This stays in the past where it belongs. Now help me clean this up." Later that night, alone in her room, Shayla stared at her phone. She'd secretly photographed several of the old articles and pictures. With trembling fingers, she began to edit them together, adding text. "Before she was my grandmother, she was a warrior. Before she was Granny June, she was a daughter of fire. This is her story. This is our history." She hesitated only a moment before hitting post. The old wooden pews creaked, as the congregation rose for the final hymn. Marjorie's voice lifted with the others, but her mind was elsewhere. She could feel concerned glances from her fellow churchgoers. They'd all seen the video by now. After service, Pastor Emmett Thomas caught her sleeve as people filed out. "Sister Washington, could we talk a moment?" Marjorie nodded, following him to his small office. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, casting colored shadows across his worn desk. The pastor settled into his chair with a sigh. "I've been praying about your situation," he began, folding his hands. "That man, what he did, it was wrong. No question. But I'm worried about where this might lead." "I haven't done anything, Pastor," Marjorie said quietly. "No, but others are." He turned his computer monitor toward her, showing a social media page filled with angry comments. "The video's everywhere. People are taking sides. And you know how things can get in this town. I didn't ask for any of this." "I know, sister. I know." He leaned forward. "But sometimes the Christian path is to turn the other cheek, to let go of the anger before it consumes us all." Marjorie's hands tightened in her lap. "Like we've always done? It's kept the peace. Has it?" Her voice was soft, but carried steel. "Or has it just kept things quiet?" Pastor Emmett rubbed his temples. "Marjorie, please, I'm trying to protect you. This man, he's dangerous. The best thing is to lay low. Let it blow over. Practice forgiveness." "I appreciate your concern, Pastor." Marjorie stood slowly. "But sometimes the Lord gives us strength for a reason." Back home, she found Shayla hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table, typing furiously. "What are you up to?" Marjorie asked, hanging up her church hat. "Making things right," Shayla replied, not looking up. "I started a Stand with June fundraiser for security cameras, legal fees, whatever we need. It's already at $2,000. Child, I told you. Look." Shayla spun the laptop around. The screen showed dozens of supportive messages. "My grandmother faced the same things in the 60s. Stay strong. We've got your back, Granny June. Don't let them silence you." Marjorie sank into a chair, overwhelmed. Before she could respond, something hit the front window with a wet splat. Then another. And another. They rushed to the porch. Yellow egg yolks dripped down the siding. A red pickup truck peeled away, Dale's angry face visible behind the wheel. "That's it," Shayla said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the police." But when two officers finally arrived an hour later, they barely glanced at the mess. "Looks like teenage pranks to me," the younger officer said, not bothering to take notes. "We know exactly who did it," Shayla protested. "We saw him. Did you get it on video?" When they shook their heads, he shrugged. "Can't do much without proof. Best to just clean it up and forget about it." The next morning, they found a note tucked under the windshield wiper of Marjorie's car. The words were cut from magazines, like an old ransom note. "Watch your back, old lady." Shayla insisted on installing security cameras that afternoon. They caught everything. Dale driving by 6 times that day. Dale stopping to take pictures of their house. Dale throwing more eggs at midnight. "The cameras got him clear as day," Shayla told the police dispatcher. "We can see his face, his license plate, everything. Ma'am, unless he causes actual damage or makes specific threats, he's stalking us. We'll send a car by to check the area." But the patrol car just cruised past once, lights off, and didn't return. That evening, Marjorie sat in her darkened living room, watching through the window as Dale's truck crept down their street for the 7th time. But this time, instead of continuing on, he pulled over across the street and cut his engine. Minutes ticked by. The truck didn't move. In the soft glow of the dashboard lights, Dale's silhouette was clearly visible behind the wheel. Just sitting, watching. Shayla paced behind the couch. "This is harassment. We have to do something." "We will," Marjorie said quietly, her eyes never leaving the truck. But not tonight. He's trying to scare us. I know. Are you scared, Granny? Marjorie thought of another night, long ago, when she'd watched headlights through a window, waiting, knowing what was coming. No, she said simply. Not anymore. Dale's truck idled in the darkness. The red glow of his brake lights reflected off the wet pavement like blood. He didn't drive away. He just sat there, a shadow behind glass, watching their home with patient malice. The morning sun hadn't yet burned away the mist when Shayla pulled into the gas and go. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her phone, watching Dale fill up his red pickup at pump number 3. She'd been tracking his routine for days, waiting for a chance like this. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of her car and hit record. "Hey!" she called out, walking toward him with her phone raised. "Remember me? The granddaughter of the woman you attacked?" Dale's head snapped up. His face twisted into an ugly sneer. "Get that camera out of my face, girl." "Why? Scared people will see who you really are?" Shayla kept filming as she moved closer. "A racist bully who picks on elderly women? I'm warning you." Dale's knuckles whitened around the gas pump. "The whole internet's already seen what you did to my grandmother. Now they're gonna see how you're stalking us, throwing eggs at our house." It happened so fast. Dale lunged forward, his massive hand swinging out. The phone went flying, clattering across the concrete. "Shut your mouth, you little—" The slur hit Shayla like a physical blow. She scrambled for her phone, but Dale's boot came down on it with a crack. Tears burned in her eyes as she looked up at him towering over her. "Next time it won't be your phone," he snarled. Shayla ran to her car, hands shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. She didn't stop crying until she pulled into their driveway. Marjorie was in the kitchen making breakfast when Shayla burst in. One look at her granddaughter's tear-streaked face, and she dropped the spatula she was holding. "What happened?" she demanded. "Are you hurt?" Shayla told her everything between sobs. As she spoke, something changed in Marjorie's expression. The careful calm she always maintained began to crack. "He threatened you." Her voice was barely a whisper. "He broke my phone. Said next time." Shayla couldn't finish. Marjorie sank into a kitchen chair, her shoulders starting to shake. For the first time in years, since her husband's funeral, she began to cry. "Granny?" Shayla had never seen her grandmother break down like this. "I thought I could protect you by staying quiet," Marjorie said through her tears. "Just like before. But it never stops, does it? The hate just finds new targets." She pressed her hands to her face, decades of buried pain pouring out. "Your grandfather, he told me to keep teaching, to keep fighting. But after they killed him, I couldn't. I was so afraid of losing anyone else." Shayla knelt beside her grandmother's chair. "Then teach me now. Please. I need to know how to defend myself." Marjorie looked at her granddaughter, really looked at her. She saw her own fire reflected in those young eyes, the same determination she'd had at that age. "Tomorrow morning," she said finally, wiping her eyes, "before dawn. We'll start with the basics." The next morning, dew still sparkled on the grass when Marjorie led Shayla to the backyard. She'd pushed aside the patio furniture to create an open space. "First position," Marjorie demonstrated, her feet shoulder-width apart. "Balance is everything." For an hour, she drilled Shayla on stances and breathing, basic blocks, how to fall safely. By the end, Shayla's legs were trembling from holding the positions. "Again," Marjorie said, each time Shayla's form slipped. Her voice carried the same quiet authority it had when teaching scared young women decades ago. They trained every morning as the sun rose. Marjorie showed Shayla pressure points, joint locks, how to use an attacker's weight against them. More importantly, she taught her when not to fight. Power isn't about hurting others, she explained. It's about being able to protect yourself and walk away. A week into their training, Shayla was practicing kicks when she heard her grandmother gasp. Marjorie stood in the doorway, staring at her phone with a stricken expression. "What is it?" Wordlessly, Marjorie held out the phone. On the screen was a video Dale had posted. Security footage from the gas station, heavily edited. It showed only Shayla approaching him, cut directly to him backing away as she moved forward. His caption read, "Violent teen tries to assault innocent man. When will the harassment stop?" The comments were already flooding in, calling Shayla a thug, demanding her arrest. Dale's followers were eating it up, spreading the lie. Shayla waited for her grandmother to say something about turning the other cheek, about staying calm and letting it go. Instead, Marjorie's face hardened into a mask of cold fury. Her spine straightened, shoulders squaring with the same precision she'd shown in the training yard. "Enough," she said, and in that single word was the weight of every injustice she'd ever swallowed, every time she'd stayed silent for peace. Enough. The morning fog clung to the headstones like ghostly fingers as Marjorie made her way through Oak Haven Cemetery. Her cane pressed into the soft earth with each step, leaving small divots in the damp grass. She hadn't visited Marcus's grave in months, but today she needed his strength. The simple granite marker read, "Marcus Washington, beloved husband, teacher, warrior, 1947–1968. Marjorie knelt slowly, her joints protesting as she placed fresh flowers against the cold stone. "I tried to keep my promise," she whispered, touching the etched letters of his name, "to stay peaceful, to let the past rest." The memories came flooding back, as vivid as the day it happened. That hot July night in '68, just 3 months after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. The Daughters of Fire had trained 12 new women that week. Marcus had been so proud, watching Marjorie teach them to stand tall, to defend themselves. Then came the burning crosses on their lawn, the Molotov cocktail through their living room window, the roar of the flames, Marcus pushing her out the back door, going back in for their photos, their marriage license, her black belt certificates, the roof collapsing. She could still smell the smoke, hear the cruel laughter of the men in white hoods as they watched her home burn with her husband inside. "I let fear win after that night," Marjorie admitted to the stone. "Packed away my GI, stopped teaching. Thought if I just stayed quiet enough, lived small enough, they'd leave us alone." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "But the hate never dies, does it? Just finds new targets. Now they're coming after our grandbaby." Standing slowly, Marjorie squared her shoulders. "I won't fail her like I failed you. It's time to wake up that old fire." Back home, Shayla was already waiting in the backyard, bouncing on her toes with nervous energy. Marjorie had traded her church dress for loose black pants and a fitted t-shirt. She moved with fluid grace as she demonstrated the first kata. "Watch my feet," she instructed. "Every step has purpose. Every movement flows from your center." Shayla tried to mirror her grandmother's movements, but her strikes were wild, uncontrolled. Frustration showed on her face as Marjorie corrected her form again and again. "I want to learn the cool moves," Shayla complained. "The ones you used on Dale." "Those techniques come last," Marjorie said firmly. "First, you must learn control, balance, patience. We don't have time for patience. He's out there right now, spreading lies about us." "Stop." Marjorie's voice cracked like a whip. "This is exactly why we start with basics. Anger makes you sloppy. Revenge makes you blind." She guided Shayla back to the starting position. "We train not to hurt, but to protect. Not for vengeance, but for justice. The difference matters." They worked through the morning, Marjorie drilling Shayla on proper stances, teaching her to channel her breathing. Slowly, the girl's movements became more focused, more controlled. Better, Marjorie nodded. Now again. By noon, Shayla was drenched in sweat, muscles trembling. But there was a new steadiness in her eyes, a glimpse of the warrior she could become. "That's enough for today," Marjorie said. "Go shower, rest. We'll train again tomorrow." "How did you stay so calm back then?" Shayla asked suddenly. "When they were burning crosses, attacking people? I can barely handle one racist jerk without losing it." Marjorie was quiet for a long moment. "I wasn't always calm. After your grandfather died, I wanted blood, wanted to burn the whole world down." She met Shayla's eyes. "But that's not what he died for. Not what we fought for. We fought so our children could walk tall, live free. Violence for violence's sake just feeds the cycle." That night, after Shayla had gone to bed, Marjorie stepped out into the backyard. The moon hung full and bright overhead, casting silver light across the grass. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to move. The kata was ancient, passed down through generations of warriors. Each movement flowed into the next like water, a block becoming a strike, a step transforming into a sweep. Her muscles remembered the patterns her mind had tried to forget. Block, turn, strike, flow. Her hands carved precise arcs through the night air. Her feet moved in perfect circles on the dew-dampened grass. This was not the frantic violence of street fighting. This was art. This was meditation. This was power under perfect control. In the moonlight, Marjorie's shadow danced across the yard, not an old woman with a cane, but a warrior priestess performing sacred rites. Every movement contained lethal precision, yet remained soft, controlled. The deadliest techniques often looked the most beautiful. The kata ended as it began, with Marjorie facing east, hands folded in prayer position. She held the pose, feeling her heartbeat slow, her breath steady. Above her, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, bearing witness to this resurrection of spirit. She was ready to teach again, ready to fight again, not with hatred, but with purpose. Not for revenge, but for protection. The warrior was awake. Officer Rico Mason shifted uncomfortably in Marjorie's living room, his body language tense as he played the security footage on his department-issued tablet. The grainy video clearly showed Dale Kaplan spraying black paint across their garage door at 3 a.m., his truck's license plate visible in the frame. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Washington," Rico said, his dark eyes filled with frustration. "Captain says there's not enough evidence to press charges. Claims the video quality is too poor for positive ID." Marjorie sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. "That man has been terrorizing us for weeks. We have multiple videos." "I know." Rico's jaw clenched. "But they're calling it minor vandalism. Said without physical confrontation, it's not a priority case." Shayla, who had been filming the conversation on her phone from the corner, exploded. "Are you kidding me? If this was reversed, if my grandmother was vandalizing some white man's house, she'd be in jail already." "Shayla," Marjorie warned, but her granddaughter wasn't finished. "No, Granny. This is exactly what's wrong with the system. They protect people like Dale while we're supposed to just sit here and take it?" Rico looked torn, glancing between them. After a moment's hesitation, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. "Look, I shouldn't do this, but here's all the footage from our database. Multiple angles, different dates. What you do with it is up to you." He placed the drive on the coffee table and stood. "Just be careful. Dale has friends in the department." After Rico left, Shayla snatched up the drive before Marjorie could stop her. "This is what we need. Once people see the truth, child, "You're playing with fire," Marjorie cautioned, but Shayla was already running upstairs to her computer. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. Shayla had edited it masterfully, setting the clips to powerful music, adding captions that detailed the police's inaction. The video spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Justice for Granny June started trending by midnight. The next morning, Marjorie's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News vans lined their street. Dale's face was plastered across local news stations, his previous lies unraveling as more evidence emerged. "Breaking news," the TV anchor announced. Local contractor Dale Kaplan faces severe backlash as footage reveals weeks of racial harassment. Major sponsors, including Henderson Building Supply and Georgian Homes, have terminated all contracts with Kaplan Construction. Shayla sat cross-legged on the floor, monitoring the online response. "They're calling you a hero, Granny. People want to hear your story. CNN, MSNBC, everyone's reaching out." Marjorie shook her head, watching Dale's angry face flash across the screen again. "I'm no hero, just an old woman who's tired of running." Her phone buzzed with another interview request, this time from a major morning show. "We'd love to have you share your inspiring journey," the producer's email read. "Your background in civil rights, your martial arts expertise, America needs to hear your voice." "You should do it," Shayla urged. "Show everyone who you really are." But Marjorie deleted the email. "My story isn't for their ratings. Some battles aren't meant for cameras and microphones." The day wore on. Online donations poured into Shayla's Stand With June fund. Local businesses put up supportive signs. Even Pastor Emmett called to apologize for suggesting she stay quiet. Dale's social media accounts went dark. His truck disappeared from their street. For a moment, it seemed like justice might actually prevail through proper channels. Then, as the sun set, came the crash. The brick sailed through their front window, sending glass shards exploding across the living room floor. Shayla screamed. Marjorie moved with surprising speed, pulling her granddaughter behind the couch. When the initial shock passed, Marjorie approached the brick carefully. A piece of paper was wrapped around it, secured with a rubber band. Her hands didn't shake as she unfolded the note. The message was short, written in thick black marker. "This isn't over." Shayla was already calling 911, but Marjorie just stood there, studying the jagged edges of the broken window. The cool evening air swept through the gap, stirring the curtains. She thought about Marcus, about the Daughters of Fire, about all the battles that had come before. Some fights couldn't be won with viral videos or public shame. Some men only understood one language, the language her body remembered, the art her muscles had never forgotten, the language of controlled power, of precise justice. She placed the brick and note carefully aside, evidence for the police who would no doubt dismiss it like everything else. Glass crunched under her feet as she walked to the closet and pulled out a broom. "Should we go stay with Aunt Rachel?" Shayla asked, her voice small. "No," Marjorie said firmly, beginning to sweep. "This is our home. We're not running." She worked methodically, gathering the shattered glass into neat piles. Each piece caught the fading sunlight, throwing tiny rainbows across the walls. Like her training, like her patience, like her resolve. Sometimes things had to break before they could be rebuilt stronger. Dawn painted the sky in shades of purple and orange as Marjorie stood in her backyard, watching Shayla struggle with the heavy sandbag. The teenager's arms trembled as she threw combinations, jab, cross, hook, each punch landing with increasing frustration. "Again!" Marjorie commanded, her voice firm but gentle. "Control your breathing. Power comes from the hips, not just the arms." Sweat dripped down Shayla's face. I've been hitting this bag for an hour, Granny. My hands hurt. The pain teaches you, Marjorie explained, adjusting Shayla's stance. In a real fight, everything hurts. You must learn to work through it. They had converted the garden shed into a makeshift dojo. Old martial arts posters covered the walls, yellowed with age but still inspiring. Training equipment salvaged from Marjorie's past life filled the space. Focus mitts, wooden dummies, and speed bags. Watch, Marjorie demonstrated, her aged body moving with surprising fluidity. Her fist shot out like lightning, the sandbag swaying from the impact. See? Sharp and clean. No wasted energy. Shayla nodded, mimicking the movement. This time her punch landed better, producing a satisfying thud. Good. Now, react. Without warning, Marjorie tossed a tennis ball at Shayla's head. The girl barely managed to dodge, stumbling backward. Granny, what the? Attackers don't announce themselves, Marjorie said, already throwing another ball. Stay ready, stay focused. They continued like this for another hour. Shayla learning to dodge, block, and counter while maintaining her stance. Every time she thought she had the pattern down, Marjorie would change it up, keeping her off balance. Inside the house later that morning, Shayla collapsed onto the couch, muscles aching. The TV droned in the background until a familiar face appeared on screen, making them both freeze. Dale Kaplan sat in a studio chair, wearing a clean button-down shirt that strained against his bulk. The chyron beneath him read, "Local contractor speaks out. Cancel culture gone too far?" "I'm the victim here," Dale's voice filled the room. "One parking lot disagreement, and suddenly my whole life is destroyed. My business, my reputation, all gone because of some edited videos and social media mob justice." The interviewer, a sympathetic-looking man in an expensive suit, nodded. "And you maintain that Mrs. Washington attacked you first?" "Absolutely. Look at me. I'm twice her size. Why would I attack an elderly woman? This is reverse racism, plain and simple. They're trying to make an example out of me because I'm a white business owner." Shayla grabbed her phone, ready to post a rebuttal, but Marjorie placed a hand on her arm. "Let him talk. Every lie he tells digs his grave deeper." They watched as Dale painted himself as a hard-working victim of woke culture, his eyes glistening with practiced tears. He described how protesters had surrounded his house, how death threats filled his inbox, how he could barely sleep at night. "I just want my life back," he finished, voice cracking. "I want people to know the truth." When the segment ended, Shayla was shaking with anger. How can they give him a platform like that? After everything he's done. But Marjorie had already left the room. Shayla found her in the study, kneeling before an old gun safe hidden behind a bookshelf. The combination lock clicked softly as Marjorie's fingers moved with practiced precision. Inside, wrapped in red cloth, lay a combat knife, its blade still sharp despite years of disuse. Beside it, folded with careful reverence, was a faded red headband. The fabric bore subtle embroidery, a phoenix rising from flames. "Marcus gave me these," Marjorie said softly, running her fingers over the items. "The night before they came for us. He said sometimes peace isn't enough. Sometimes you have to stand and fight." Shayla knelt beside her grandmother, watching as she lifted the headband. The morning light caught the threading, making the phoenix seem to dance. "The knife was for protection," Marjorie continued. "But this was for warrior spirit. All the daughters wore them. It meant we wouldn't back down, wouldn't be silenced." With steady hands, Marjorie brought the headband to her forehead. The motion seemed to transform her, her spine straightening, her eyes hardening with purpose. She tied it with practiced ease, the knot sitting perfectly centered. The woman who emerged wasn't just Granny June anymore. This was Marjorie Washington of the Daughters of Fire, a fighter, a protector, a warrior who had walked through fire before and was ready to do it again. She closed the safe, leaving the knife inside. "Some battles need weapons," she said, standing tall. "This one needs something else. It needs truth. It needs justice. It needs the strength that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for." Shayla stared at her grandmother, seeing her truly for the first time. The red headband wasn't just a piece of cloth, it was a declaration, a line drawn in the sand, a promise that silence and submission were no longer options. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Marjorie's front porch when 3 cars pulled into her driveway. She stood at the window, the red headband still tied firmly around her forehead, and watched as 4 elderly women emerged with the kind of careful grace that comes with age. "Lord, have mercy," Marjorie whispered, recognizing them instantly despite the decades that had passed. Shayla looked up from her phone. "Who are they, Granny?" Before Marjorie could answer, a sharp knock echoed through the house. She opened the door to find Lena Harris standing there, her silver hair cropped short, her dark eyes sharp as ever. "You just had to go and start something again, didn't you, June?" Lena said, a slight smile playing at her lips. Behind her stood Bernice, Dora, and Ruth, all former members of the Daughters of Fire, all carrying themselves with the same quiet strength they'd had in their youth. "Come in, sisters," Marjorie said, her voice thick with emotion. They gathered in the living room, these warriors of another era. Shayla watched from the doorway as they embraced her grandmother, their reunion filled with both joy and something heavier. A shared understanding of battles fought long ago. "We saw the video," Bernice said, settling into an armchair. "That man had no idea what he was stepping into." "Still got that sweep down perfect," Dora added with a proud nod. "Clean as ever." Lena remained standing, her hands clasped behind her back, like she was about to begin instruction. "But it's not just about one racist fool in a parking lot anymore, is it? They're organizing against you." "I know," Marjorie sighed. "Dale Kaplan's been busy spinning his story." "My Sarah," Lena said suddenly, her voice catching. "She was only 23 when they killed her. A hate crime, they called it. Like that made it easier to bear. The men who did it, they organized too. Had meetings, made plans, just like what's happening now." The room fell silent. Shayla stepped forward, drawn by the raw pain in Lena's voice. "I never knew," Marjorie said softly, reaching for her old friend's hand. "I trained other women's daughters to defend themselves," Lena continued, "but I couldn't save my own. When I saw you on that video, June, saw you standing up to that man, I knew I had to come. We all did." Ruth nodded firmly. "The Daughters of Fire protect their own. Always have. Always will. We're forming a circle around you," Bernice declared, "like we used to do. Remember? One sister falls back, the others step forward." Shayla watched as these elderly women, who might look fragile to outsiders, transformed before her eyes. Their spines straightened, their voices grew stronger, and something fierce flickered in their expressions, a fire that had never truly died. "I've been teaching Shayla," Marjorie told them, gesturing to her granddaughter. "The old ways." Lena assessed Shayla with experienced eyes. "Show me your stance." Without hesitation, Shayla moved into the defensive position her grandmother had taught her. Lena circled her, making small adjustments to her elbow, her foot placement. "Good foundation," Lena approved. "But you'll need more than just physical training. You need to learn strategy, observation, patience." "I can help with that," Shayla said, pulling out her phone. "I've been following Dale, recording everything. The women gathered around as Shayla played her latest footage. She'd tracked Dale to a bar on the outskirts of town, filming from her car as he met with a group of men in the parking lot. Their trucks bore familiar symbols: Confederate flags, white supremacist stickers. There were 8 of them, Shayla explained. They talked for almost an hour. Dale kept pointing at something on his phone, probably showing them our address. Marjorie's face darkened as she watched the footage. These weren't just angry social media posts or thrown eggs anymore. These were men with weapons, with plans, with a history of violence that echoed through generations. "You shouldn't have gone alone," Marjorie said, her voice tight with concern. "It's too dangerous." "Someone had to document it," Shayla argued. "The police won't help us. We need proof." "She's right about that," Dora said. "But she's also too young to remember what men like that are capable of." Lena placed a hand on Shayla's shoulder. "Courage is good, child, but courage without wisdom is just recklessness." The footage continued, showing Dale growing animated, gesturing wildly as the other men nodded. Their body language spoke of violence barely contained, of threats waiting to be fulfilled. Marjorie felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. She saw Marcus in her mind, remembered the night they came for him, saw Sarah's face in the photo on Lena's mantle all those years ago, watched her granddaughter, so brave and foolish, walking into the same dangers they had faced decades before. The circle of women drew closer, their presence both comforting and resolute. They had been here before, had fought these battles, had lost and won and survived. Now they were here again, older but unbroken, ready to stand together one more time. The evening light filtered through the windows as Shayla's thumbs hovered over her phone's screen, ready to post the damning footage of Dale and his group. "No!" Marjorie's voice was firm, cutting through the tense silence. "Put the phone down, baby." "But Granny, people need to see this," Shayla protested, gesturing at her screen. "They're planning something bad. We have proof now." Lena and the other women watched the exchange with knowing eyes. Marjorie crossed the room and gently took the phone from her granddaughter's hands. "This is my war to finish," she said softly, but with steel in her voice. "Not yours, not the internet's. Mine. But no buts." Marjorie sat down beside Shayla on the couch. "Posting that video won't stop them. It'll just make them more dangerous, more desperate. We need to be smarter than that." Bernice nodded from her seat. "Your grandmother's right. These men feed off attention. They twist it, use it to paint themselves as victims." "Then what do we do?" Shayla asked, frustration clear in her voice. "Just wait for them to attack us?" "No," Marjorie said, standing up straight. "We meet them where this all began, the grocery store parking lot." The women exchanged glances. Dora leaned forward in her chair. "What are you thinking, June?" "A peaceful protest," Marjorie explained, her eyes distant as she formed the plan. "Not with anger or violence, but with dignity. Show everyone who we really are, who we've always been." "A public confrontation," Lena mused, understanding dawning on her face. "Not just physical this time, but moral." "Exactly." Marjorie began to pace, her movements precise and controlled. "Dale wants to paint himself as a victim, but we'll show the truth. We'll stand there, in that spot, with our heads held high." Ruth smiled. "Like we used to do outside the segregated diners. But this time," Marjorie continued, "we'll have cameras, witnesses, the whole world watching, on our terms." Shayla's eyes lit up. "I can help with that part. Create an event page, spread the word." "Carefully," Marjorie cautioned. "No mention of Dale or confrontation. Just a peaceful gathering. A stand for dignity." The women spent the next hour planning, drawing on decades of experience in nonviolent resistance. They chose a date, mapped out positions, discussed security measures. Bernice would contact local church groups. Dora would reach out to community leaders. Ruth knew reporters who could be trusted to tell the story right. "We'll wear white," Marjorie decided. "Like we did back then. Clean, simple, dignified." "And the red headbands?" Lena asked quietly. Marjorie touched the band still tied around her forehead. "Yes, for Sarah, for Marcus, for all of them." As the sun began to set, the women moved to the backyard. They watched as Marjorie stepped onto the grass, her movements flowing into the familiar patterns of a kata, a choreographed series of martial arts movements that told a story of both combat and peace. Shayla sat on the back steps, phone in hand, crafting the message that would bring people together. She looked up occasionally to watch her grandmother move through the ancient forms with grace and power. "Keep it simple," Lena advised, watching over Shayla's shoulder. "Let people come for the right reasons." Shayla nodded, typing carefully. "Stand for dignity. Saturday, 10 a.m. Wilson's Grocery Parking Lot. Wear white. Bring your truth. Bring your peace. Stand with June." The kata continued as the sky darkened. Marjorie's movements were like water, flowing, adaptable, but unstoppable. Each step, each turn, each strike was performed with perfect control. This wasn't about violence. It was about mastery of self. "Look at her form," Dora whispered to Shayla. "That's what real strength looks like. Not angry men with guns, but this, complete control, perfect balance." Shayla pressed send on the invitation just as Marjorie completed the final movement, ending in a bow to the darkening sky. The message began to spread immediately, phones buzzing with notifications across the room. "It's done," Shayla said quietly. Marjorie walked back to the porch, her breathing steady, her face serene. "Now we wait. And we prepare." The women gathered their things, making plans to return tomorrow. One by one, they hugged Marjorie goodbye, each embrace carrying the weight of shared history and renewed purpose. As headlights disappeared down the street, Marjorie and Shayla stood on the porch watching the last traces of sunset fade from the sky. Shayla's phone kept buzzing, the event invitation spreading faster than she'd expected. "The whole internet's watching now, Granny," Shayla said softly. Marjorie put her arm around her granddaughter's shoulders. "Let them watch. Let them see what real strength looks like. Let them see what dignity means." Inside, their phones continued to light up with notifications, spreading the word across the digital landscape. But out here, in the growing darkness, grandmother and granddaughter stood in peaceful silence, ready for whatever would come next. The sun hadn't fully risen when the first cars started pulling into Wilson's grocery parking lot. Dawn painted the asphalt in soft pinks and oranges, the light catching on dewdrops that clung to the grass along the curb. Marjorie stood quietly by her car, watching as people emerged from their vehicles wearing white. Her own white shirt bore 3 simple words in black letters: "I defend peace." The red headband stood out against her silver hair, a splash of color that carried decades of meaning. Shayla stood beside her, wearing an identical shirt, her phone ready to live stream. "You nervous, Granny?" Shayla whispered. Marjorie shook her head. "Not nervous. Ready." More cars arrived. Church groups, community members, even some of the grocery store workers who'd witnessed the original incident. Local news vans parked at the edges, cameras already rolling. Lena, Bernice, and Dora positioned themselves strategically around the crowd, watching. By 7:30, over 50 people had gathered. They formed a loose circle in the middle of the lot, leaving the contested parking spot empty. A silent reminder of where it all began. Some held signs, "Hate has no home here," and "Stand with June." "Look," Shayla murmured, nodding toward the store's security camera. "They turned it on early today." Marjorie allowed herself a small smile. Everything was being recorded. Everything would be seen. The rumble of diesel engines cut through the morning quiet. 3 pickup trucks rolled into the lot, tires crunching over loose gravel. Dale's red Ford led the pack, Confederate flag sticker gleaming on the back window. 2 other trucks followed, carrying men who looked ready for trouble. "Here we go," Lena said quietly, moving closer to Marjorie's side. Dale stepped out first, his face already red with anger. 2 men flanked him, younger, fitter, wearing combat boots and tight black t-shirts. They moved like they were looking for a fight. "This is private property," Dale shouted, stomping toward the crowd. "Y'all are trespassing." The store manager, Mr. Wilson, stepped forward. "Actually, they have permission to be here. You don't." Dale's face darkened. He jabbed a finger at Marjorie. "This old witch attacked me, and now she's trying to ruin my life with her lies." The crowd remained silent, cameras recording. Marjorie stood perfectly still, her posture relaxed but ready. "The only liar here is you," Shayla called out, her phone steady as she filmed. "We've got proof of everything you did." One of Dale's companions, a muscular man with a shaved head, started toward Shayla. "Give me that phone, girl." Marjorie's voice cut through the tension. "Stop right there." The man hesitated, something in her tone making him pause. Dale pushed past him, getting in Shayla's face. "You think you're so smart with your little camera? You think you can cancel me?" "Back away from my granddaughter," Marjorie said, each word precise and measured. Dale spun toward her. "Or what? You'll attack me again? This time I got witnesses." He gestured to his friends, who nodded eagerly. "We're all witnesses," someone in the crowd called. More phones came out, recording from every angle. Dale's face twisted. He shoved Shayla hard, sending her stumbling backward. "How's that for witnesses?" What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion for those watching. One moment Marjorie was standing still. The next she was moving with impossible speed. Her first strike caught Dale's extended arm, redirecting his momentum. Her second hit made him gasp for air. Dale's friends rushed forward. The bald man swung a wild punch. Marjorie slipped it easily, her counterstrike precise and devastating. He dropped to one knee, clutching his solar plexus. The other man grabbed for her, but she flowed around his grip like water, her elbow finding the nerve cluster in his shoulder. His arm went limp. Dale recovered enough to charge, bellowing in rage. Marjorie met him with textbook precision. She swept his leg, controlled his fall, and locked his arm behind his back in one fluid sequence. He hit the pavement, face first. "Stay down," she said quietly. "It's over." The whole encounter had lasted less than 30 seconds. The crowd stood in stunned silence, dozens of phones capturing every moment. Dale's friends backed away, hands raised. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Marjorie maintained the hold, applying just enough pressure to keep Dale still. He struggled briefly, then went limp, the fight draining out of him. "You're done," Marjorie told him. "All your hate, all your bullying, it ends here." The first police car pulled into the lot. Officers emerged with hands on their weapons, but stopped short when they saw the scene. Dozens of phones pointed their way, live streaming everything. "She attacked me!" Dale tried one last time, his voice muffled against the pavement. "We all saw what happened," Mr. Wilson said firmly. "Every camera in the lot saw it. Every phone recorded it." Officers approached cautiously. Marjorie released Dale smoothly, stepping back as they took control. They helped him up, but instead of approaching Marjorie, they began reading him his rights. The handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. His supporters melted away, hurrying to their trucks. The bald man was already pulling out of the lot, abandoning his friend. Dale's face showed the moment he realized how completely his power had evaporated. Not through violence, but through exposure to the light. The video of the parking lot confrontation hit every major network within hours. CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News ran the footage on endless loops. Social media exploded with hashtags Granny June, Parking Lot Justice, and I Defend Peace trended globally. Marjorie sat in her living room, sipping tea and ignoring her ringing phone. Shayla scrolled through her own phone, reading headlines aloud. Karate Grandma stands up to racist bully. Senior citizen shows masterclass in self-defense. Viral video sparks national conversation on race and justice. Shayla looked up. Granny, you're famous. Marjorie shook her head. I'm tired, baby. That's what I am. Outside their house, news vans lined the street. Reporters camped on the sidewalk, hoping for a statement. But Marjorie kept her curtains drawn and her door locked. In cities across the country, people marched wearing white shirts with I Defend Peace printed on them. Young women organized self-defense classes. Elderly Black women came forward with their own stories of quiet resistance. The Today Show wants you on Monday, Shayla said, checking her emails. And Good Morning America on Tuesday. Ellen's people called too. No, Marjorie said simply. No shows. But Granny, people need to hear your story. You could inspire so many. My story was told in that parking lot, Marjorie interrupted gently. Everything that needed to be said was said right there. The invitations kept coming. Universities wanted her to speak. Women's groups requested appearances. Politicians sought photo ops. Marjorie declined them all. Shayla, however, found herself suddenly in demand. Youth organizations wanted her perspective on bridging generational activism. Civil rights groups praised her social media campaign. She was invited to speak at high schools about standing up to hate. The Young Leaders Summit wants me on their main panel, Shayla announced one morning, bouncing with excitement. They're flying me to Washington. Marjorie smiled. Now that's something worth doing. You go tell your truth, baby. The City Council organized a special ceremony to present Marjorie with a Community Hero Award. She accepted only because Mr. Wilson from the grocery store personally asked her to come. She wore a simple dress, said thank you quietly, and left before the reporters could corner her. When a congressional committee invited her to testify about hate crimes and community response, Marjorie sent a polite decline. I'm not a politician, she told Shayla. I'm just a grandmother who remembered who she was. Dale's trial date was set. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, witness statements, and his own social media posts painted a clear picture of harassment and assault. His lawyer pushed for a plea deal. Through it all, Marjorie tended her garden. She went to church. She taught Shayla more kata in the backyard at dawn. When reporters asked for comments, she pointed them to organizations doing anti-racism work. One evening, Lena called. Come over, she said. Just us girls. No cameras, no speeches. Bring Shayla. Marjorie and Shayla arrived at Lena's small house to find Bernice and Dora already there. The kitchen smelled of cornbread and collard greens. None of the women wore makeup. Their faces showed every line, every year, every battle. Look at us, Lena laughed, pouring sweet tea. The original Daughters of Fire, sitting in my kitchen like it's 1965. Bernice touched her scarred arm, a reminder of a night long ago when crosses burned. We were something back then, weren't we? Still are, Dora said firmly. Did you see our girl handle those fools in that parking lot? Smooth as silk. Shayla sat quietly, absorbing every word. These women had fought battles before she was born, had carried scars longer than she'd been alive. To June, Lena raised her glass. Who taught us all that peace doesn't mean weakness? To the next generation, Marjorie added, smiling at Shayla, who remind us why we fought in the first place. They clinked glasses. No phones recorded the moment. No cameras flashed. Just 5 women in a warm kitchen, sharing stories that would never make the news but would echo through time anyway. "Remember that night in Montgomery?" Bernice asked. "When we had to walk Sister Mary home? 3 Klan boys thought they'd scare us." Dora nodded. "Didn't expect 6 black women to know how to fight back. We protected each other," Lena said softly. "That's what it was always about." Shayla leaned forward. "Tell me more. Please." The women exchanged looks. Then, one by one, they began to share. Not the sanitized versions for television, but the raw truth of what it meant to be black women defending themselves in a world that denied them that right. Their voices filled the kitchen, mixing with the smell of good food and the sound of cicadas through the open window. No hashtags, no viral moments, no carefully crafted statements. Just truth, passed down like a precious inheritance from one generation to the next. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Marjorie walked the familiar path to First Baptist. The evening air hung heavy with the promise of rain, matching her somber mood. She needed time alone, away from the cameras and chaos, to sit in the quiet sanctuary where she'd prayed through so many storms before. Her cane tapped softly against the cracked sidewalk. The streetlights cast long shadows across empty storefronts. Most businesses had closed for the night, leaving the street eerily silent except for the occasional passing car. The first drops began to fall as she reached the church steps. Fat raindrops splashed against the worn stone, creating dark spots that spread like ink stains. Marjorie paused, looking up at the steeple reaching into the darkening sky. Movement caught her eye, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. Her muscles tensed instinctively. Years of training had taught her to trust that sixth sense, the one that whispered danger before it struck. They came fast, 2 men in dark hoodies and Halloween masks. One from behind the church sign, one from around the corner. Their footsteps were muffled by the increasing rain. "Dale sends his regards," the taller one growled, brandishing a baseball bat. Marjorie's grip tightened on her cane. She'd known this might come, the desperate last gasp of hate trying to reassert itself. Her arthritis screamed as she shifted into a defensive stance. The first attacker lunged with the bat. Marjorie pivoted, using her cane to deflect the swing. The wet wood cracked against metal. She didn't hesitate, driving the cane's tip hard into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gagging. The second man grabbed her from behind. His arm locked around her throat, trying to choke her. Marjorie dropped her weight suddenly, throwing him off balance. Her elbow found his kidney. Once. Twice. 3 strikes, each harder than the last. Rain poured now, making the ground treacherous. Marjorie's shoes slipped on wet concrete as she fought to maintain her footing. The first attacker recovered, swinging the bat again. She barely dodged, feeling the wind of its passage. Her body protested every movement. This wasn't the clean efficiency of the parking lot confrontation. This was ugly, desperate survival. Marjorie grabbed a handful of loose gravel from the church flower bed and flung it at the bat wielder's face. He cursed, momentarily blinded. Taking advantage of his distraction, she struck his wrist with precise force, hitting the cluster of nerves that made his fingers spasm open. The bat clattered to the ground. Marjorie kicked it away, sending it spinning across the wet pavement. The second attacker pulled a knife. Steel glinted in the dim light. Marjorie's breath came in ragged gasps now. Rain plastered her clothes to her skin, making every movement harder. He slashed wildly. Marjorie blocked with her cane, but the force knocked it from her grip. The blade caught her arm, opening a long cut. Pain flared, hot and sharp. Something shifted inside her. A deeper, darker power she hadn't accessed in decades. This wasn't about defense anymore. This was about survival. She caught his knife hand mid-strike, fingers digging into pressure points that made him scream. The blade dropped. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm behind his back until something popped. He howled. The first man charged again. Marjorie met him with a series of rapid strikes. Throat, temple, floating rib. Each hit targeted vulnerable points with brutal precision. He staggered, then collapsed. Both attackers lay groaning on the wet ground. Marjorie stood over them, rain mixing with blood on her sleeve. Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark white. "Tell Dale," she said, voice cold as steel, "that next time he better come himself." They scrambled away, one clutching his dislocated shoulder, the other barely able to breathe. Marjorie watched until they disappeared into the darkness. Her legs trembled. The adrenaline began to fade, leaving exhaustion and pain in its wake. She retrieved her cane with shaking hands and climbed the church steps. Inside, the sanctuary was dark, except for the eternal flame flickering near the altar. Marjorie collapsed onto a pew, finally allowing herself to feel the full extent of her injuries. Her arm throbbed. Various muscles screamed from being pushed far beyond their usual limits. She didn't know how long she sat there, listening to rain drum against stained glass windows, before she heard hurried footsteps in the vestibule. "Granny?" Shayla's voice echoed in the empty church. Pastor Emmett called. He saw something from his office window. Said I should check. She stopped short, seeing Marjorie's condition. "Oh my God!" "I'm all right, baby," Marjorie said softly, though blood still seeped through her sleeve. Shayla rushed forward, phone already out to call 911. Marjorie caught her wrist. "No police, no hospitals, just help me home." "But Granny, you're hurt. We need to—" "What I need," Marjorie interrupted, "is for them to understand there won't be any more warnings. This ends tonight." Shayla stared at her grandmother, at the blood, the torn clothes, the steel in her eyes. She slowly lowered the phone. Rain continued to fall outside as lightning flashed through the windows, casting strange shadows across the pews. Marjorie closed her eyes, feeling every one of her 72 years. But beneath the pain and exhaustion, a grim satisfaction took root. She had proven once again that she wouldn't be broken. The morning sun filtered through Marjorie's kitchen window as she sat at her small table, sipping chamomile tea. Her bandaged arm rested carefully on a cushion, and various bruises had bloomed overnight in shades of purple and blue. Despite the pain, she maintained her usual dignified posture. Shayla bustled around the kitchen, making breakfast and checking her phone every few minutes. The incident at the church had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. She'd barely slept, staying up to watch over her grandmother. "You need to eat something, Granny," Shayla said, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs in front of Marjorie. "I'm fine, baby. Just tired." Marjorie picked up her fork with her good hand, trying not to wince at the movement. The doorbell rang. Shayla checked the security camera they'd installed after the first attacks. It was Ms. Lena and several other women from the neighborhood carrying covered dishes and grocery bags. "We heard what happened," Lena announced as she swept into the kitchen. "The whole community's talking about it." The women quickly took over, setting up an impromptu care station. Mrs. Jenkins, a retired nurse, insisted on checking Marjorie's bandages. Betty from 2 streets over started organizing the fridge with casseroles and soups. Shayla sat cross-legged on the counter, filming snippets for her social media. Her hands shook slightly as she recorded. "This is what they did to my grandmother," she narrated, showing Marjorie's injuries. All because she stood up to a bully. All because she wouldn't stay quiet. The video uploaded. Within hours, it exploded across multiple platforms. News vans appeared on their street again. This time, the coverage was different. focused on the pattern of escalating violence, the failure of local law enforcement to act, the broader implications of hate-motivated attacks. "Look at this, Granny," Shayla said, showing Marjorie her phone. A GoFundMe titled Justice for Granny June had already raised over $50,000. The description read, "For security systems, legal fees, and reopening her self-defense dojo." Marjorie stared at the growing number. "I never asked for this," she said softly. "You didn't have to," Lena replied. "People know what's right. They want to help." By evening, federal investigators had arrived in town. They interviewed Marjorie in her living room, taking detailed notes about every incident, from the initial parking lot confrontation to the church attack. Their questions were thorough, professional, and finally, someone was listening. "We've been tracking Mr. Kaplan's online activities," one agent explained. "The attack on you fits a pattern of organized hate crimes across 3 states. Your case could help bring down their entire network." Days passed. Marjorie's physical wounds began to heal. But something else was healing too. Her resolve. She spent hours in her garden, thinking, planning. The old dojo space still stood empty downtown, waiting. One morning, she asked Shayla to drive her there. The windows were dusty, the floor needed refinishing, but the bones were good. Strong, like her. "It's time," Marjorie said, running her hand along the wall. "These walls have seen enough darkness. Time to let some light back in." Word spread quickly. Women started showing up before they even officially reopened. Mothers, daughters, grandmothers, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. Some brought stories of abuse or harassment. Others simply wanted to feel stronger. Marjorie supervised the cleaning and repairs from a folding chair, directing volunteers with quiet authority. New mats arrived. Fresh paint covered old scars. The Daughters of Fire logo was restored above the entrance, but with a new subtitle, "All Sisters Welcome." Meanwhile, federal charges came down hard on Dale and his associates. Conspiracy, hate crimes, interstate organized violence. The evidence trail led to bigger fish, darker corners. Dale's tough guy facade crumbled in custody as he faced decades behind bars. On opening day, the dojo was packed. Women of all ages filled the space, many wearing T-shirts with Marjorie's photo and the words, "Stand with June." Shayla had organized everything, from the registration system to the class schedule. "Ready?" Marjorie asked, watching Shayla adjust her white belt nervously. "What if I mess up?" Shayla whispered. "You won't. Just remember what I taught you. Strength isn't about hurting others. It's about protecting yourself and lifting others up." Shayla took her place at the front of the class. 20 women stood before her, waiting. She took a deep breath and bowed, just as her grandmother had shown her. "First position," she called out, voice growing stronger. "We'll start with basic blocks. Remember, these moves aren't about fighting. They're about creating boundaries, about saying no with your whole body." From her seat against the wall, Marjorie watched silently as Shayla led the class through their first moves. Pride swelled in her chest, not just for her granddaughter, but for every woman finding her power on those mats. The afternoon sun streamed through clean windows, casting long rectangles of light across the training floor. In those beams, shadows moved in unison, punching, blocking, standing firm. Each movement was a declaration. We will not be afraid. We will not be silent. We will not be broken. Marjorie's smile remained quiet, but her eyes shone as she watched her legacy take new form, growing stronger with each determined strike. The summer heat shimmered off the asphalt as Marjorie's car pulled into the grocery store parking lot. Sunlight glinted off a bronze plaque mounted on a small stone pedestal near the entrance. Shayla leaned forward from the passenger seat, reading the words she already knew by heart. "This spot belongs to no one, And everyone. Still can't believe they actually put that up, Shayla said, shaking her head with a smile. She'd grown taller over the past year, more confident. College acceptance letters were scattered across her bedroom desk at home. Sometimes small things make big changes, Marjorie replied, adjusting her rearview mirror. Her movements were fluid now, the old injuries long healed. She wore a light summer dress, her silver hair caught up in a neat bun. The parking lot had changed little in the years since the confrontation. Same cracked asphalt, same yellow lines, same shopping carts clustered in their corrals. But the energy was different. People nodded to each other more, held doors open, took their time. As they walked toward the entrance, Mrs. Peterson from the bakery waved through the window. "Granny June, those herbs you gave me are growing beautifully." Marjorie smiled and waved back. Her garden had become something of a community resource, sharing cuttings and seedlings with anyone who asked. The sharing had spread. Now there were community plots behind the dojo, tended by students between classes. Inside the store, the usual Saturday morning bustle filled the aisles. A young mother with 2 small children smiled shyly as they passed. She was one of the newer students at the dojo, slowly building confidence after leaving an abusive relationship. "Miss Washington," one of the baggers, a teenager named Marcus, called out. "My sister loves your self-defense classes. She's talking about getting her yellow belt next month. Tell her to keep practicing those blocks," Shayla replied. She'd grown into her role as an instructor, teaching the younger students while juggling college applications and her final year of high school. They moved through the store methodically, picking up ingredients for Sunday dinner. It would be one of their last shared meals before Shayla left for college in the fall. She'd been accepted to Howard University, full scholarship. "You remember to order those extra mats for the dojo?" Marjorie asked, examining a bunch of collard greens. "Already delivered," Shayla confirmed. "The afternoon classes are getting bigger." "Ms. Lena says we might need to add another beginner session." The dojo had flourished beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a place of healing had grown into a true community center. Women came for self-defense and stayed for the solidarity. They shared stories, resources, strength. The Daughters of Fire spirit lived on, transformed but undiminished. At the meat counter, Mr. Johnson tipped his hat. The usual ladies, "I got some fresh turkey necks just came in." "Perfect for soup," Marjorie nodded. She'd been teaching cooking classes at the dojo too, passing down family recipes alongside fighting techniques. Nourishment came in many forms. News of Dale's conviction had come down 3 months ago. 25 years, no possibility of parole. His network had crumbled, exposing similar groups across the South. The federal investigation was still ongoing, reaching into dark corners long left undisturbed. "Look who made the magazine rack," Shayla grinned, pointing to a local lifestyle publication. There was Marjorie on the cover, teaching a class of women ranging from teenagers to grandmothers. The headline read, "Standing Strong: How One Woman's Stand Changed a Community." Lord, I still can't get used to that. Marjorie shook her head. She'd turned down most press requests, but agreed to the local story because it focused on the students, not just her. They finished their shopping and headed back to the parking lot. The Georgia sun had climbed higher, baking the pavement. As they approached their car, a red pickup truck accelerated suddenly, trying to cut across to grab a spot near the entrance. The driver, a young man in his 20s, had his window down and mouth open, likely ready to shout. Then he saw Marjorie. Recognition flickered across his face. The truck's brake lights flashed as he quickly reversed, backing away with a small wave of apology. Marjorie said nothing. She simply guided her car into the spot with practiced ease, movements smooth and unhurried. Stepping out, she stood tall, her shadow stretching long across the asphalt, where everything had started a year ago. Some lessons stick, Shayla observed, helping unload the groceries. They do when they need to, Marjorie replied. She glanced at the bronze plaque again, remembering. So much had changed from that first confrontation. Not just in the town, but in herself. The warrior and the grandmother had found their balance. The shopping cart wheels squeaked slightly as they headed toward their car. Around them, the parking lot continued its everyday dance of arrivals and departures. But now there was a rhythm to it, an unspoken courtesy. People waited their turns, gave space, acknowledged each other. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.